Kip, what's up, man? Great to see you this week.
Good to see you as well.
This is always a good start to our week. Is like I feel like, anyways, for Monday because we do these Monday morning. We record, and I love it because it gets me thinking. It gets me working through some of the questions that we get because we do get a lot of good questions from the guys, and yeah, it's just nice to be able to work through that and also see what other issues guys are dealing with because there are some common themes we continue to see. And
Totally.
that helps me put together information and ideas and content throughout the week and coming weeks that will serve these guys. So I've been thinking about how timely it is that we do these on Monday morning.
Totally. I agree. It serves me so well. And I know we sound like broken records saying this, but like we're the beneficiaries of these conversations and these recordings. I
Yeah,
can't
100%.
like last night I was working on some content for Iron Council, and it's fresh in my mind. And by it being fresh and present on my mind, right? My kids' room's a mess. And I go, wait a second, Kip, right? Don't get all emotional, right? And so I'm like, all right, create a safe space. Girls, my expectation is X. Was that your understanding as well in regards to how your room should look? Well, yeah, we agree. Okay. Where do you think the gap is? And so we start talking.
Yeah.
Like the only reason why I handled that correctly is because it was on my mind already earlier in the day about the proper ways of identifying what motivates people and their abilities and how to have an effective accountability conversation. Otherwise, it would have been get your room, clean it up. I'm so pissed off. Right? I've been moping around like I normally do, but it's just the power of present. I don't know if it's presence. I don't know what word you'd use, but it being on the forefront of our minds is just so much of a key, right? Because
Right.
I know how I should show up better in life. I think we all do, but we don't, right? And it's like, what's the gap
Yeah.
between that? I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
definitely think it being in front of you is crucial because it's so easy for us to get lost in the weeds and our normal patterns. One of the things that you talked about was how you respond to situations. And I think that's an underlying issue that a lot of men deal with. I say that because that's something I definitely deal with. If
Yeah.
I look at my life and even just small interactions with my wife or my kids or you or other people, the I was going to say the root of the problem. It's not the root of the problem, but the way that the symptom that's the worst is emotional immaturity
Yeah.
for me. And I know
Yeah.
it is for a lot of other guys because we've talked about it. So if you think
Totally.
about what that might be, it might mean impatience. It might be anger. You can feel your blood boiling because your kids don't do something or your wife responds or doesn't respond in a way that you like. And it triggers you somehow because of either subconscious or conscious thoughts and beliefs about what should be taking place. And then it manifests itself through anger, or that might be what a lot of guys experience. Another one that it might manifest itself for some men is complete avoidance of it, almost to the point where
Yeah.
I'm going to get you back by not talking to you. And that's an emotional response, overly emotional response.
Yeah.
I've noticed that for myself. So when you talk about your kids that don't have clean rooms, I mean, we don't need to blow up over that, but yet we do.
We need
And
to
instead,
address
if you
it.
have a rational and mature conversation with your kids who can also are capable of that, it actually gets done and the root of the problem gets addressed rather than them just being angry and contentious with you.
Totally. I went to a wedding 2 months ago. And one of the things that I like the guy who married this couple that he said is, and I actually disagree with the way he said it, but I created my own interpretation of what he said.
Mm-hmm.
But he said something to the extent of like, you guys love each other so much and you love everybody, but make sure to love yourselves, right?
Mm.
And because when you love yourself, then you can love other people better. And I took that as like, okay, I agree with that. However, when we're emotionally mature, then we can help people, right? Like Asia's trigger and being pissed off coming into the house. Now I'm in a position to go, hey, babe, let me help you out. I could see past the clouds and rise up into a position to show up powerfully for her and not be reacted reactionary based upon how she's acting.
Right.
But if I'm running around emotionally charged, I'm not helping anybody, right?
Yeah.
I'm piling on firewood at that point, and I'm not going to be able to serve anybody at work or anybody else because I'm getting triggered like there's no tomorrow, you know?
So I had an interesting discussion with Granger Smith last week, but the recording of that podcast came out yesterday as to the release of this podcast. So Tuesday, yesterday.
Yeah.
And he actually talked about the concept of loving yourself and how that's a problem because too many people love themselves too much. And that's actually the problem. Even when you're angry, that's actually a sign of self-love because your emotions are more important than the other person that you might say you're trying to serve. So if you think about what we truly love, if it's a new car, for example, or a new piece of technology, maybe you got a new computer, what do? You maintain it, you keep it clean, you give it attention. If it's the car, you put the best fuel in it, you get the tires rotated often and the oil change and all the fluids topped off. And like you give it attention in a way that's healthy, right? That actually is going to create longevity or continue to make that thing look good. And then we look at our relationships and the people that we say we love, and we don't do that. We get frustrated, we get annoyed, we get put out, and it's not because we care about them so much. It's because we care about ourselves so much that we can't give people what they need, which might just be attention or patience or a little empathy.
Well, and it's because I would even say our relationship with ourselves for most people, I think, is unhealthy anyway. They're like, oh, this is me loving yourself. You're like, no, you're so inward and you're so wrapped up in being right and being wrong that you're constantly blaming other people. You're a victim. You're passing the buck onto someone else. And you're all doing that in the spirit of quote unquote, loving yourself. Right.
It's
Like
almost
most people
like
don't even know themselves, let alone love themselves.
if we're using that word of love, let's take love and even lust. So you might love a woman and then alternatively, you might lust after a woman. And it's natural. Those are physical needs that we have, but it's done in an unhealthy way. Lust would be unhealthy, but love is not. And if we use that verbiage for ourselves, a lot of times it's just lust for ourselves.
Yeah, we're lusting after ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
We want the quick fix. We want to feel good. And so what do? Well, we drink the colas and we have a bunch of snacks and eat like crap and we don't go work out and we sleep longer than we should. And
I stroke my own ego.
Yourself. Yes.
And I struck my own ego and I'm always right. And I'm unwilling to admit that I'm wrong. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we almost turn it from a healthy perspective, which could be love, to something that's unhealthy, which could be, lust, which is that short-term immediate gratification, getting some needs met in a very unhealthy, unconstructive way.
Yeah, just dopamine hit after dopamine hit all day long.
For sure. All right, man. Well, let's get into some questions. I think that was a good opening.
I don't think we need questions. We don't need questions.
We're done. We can just roll knowledge
without you guys.
That's right.
We don't need your questions.
All right. Well, these ones come from our Facebook group, right?
Yes, sir. Facebook.com/group/order of man. All right, let's get into it. First long question here. Guz, how present does a dad or father need to be impactful? I think I find myself stuck between wanting to pursue and excel at my passions of hunting and Brazilian jiu-jitsu and feel like I need to be home and not out of the home doing what I love. Let's just stop there actually, because everything else is kind of story.
Sure. Well, that's a fine line, isn't it? It's a fine line between making sure that you do take care of yourself. And I would suggest that taking care of yourself in moderation is actually a good thing for your children to see, to model that you are important, that your priorities, or I should say the things you're interested in are a priority. And I can't tell you if there's a hard and fast rule of, well, if you spend, 40 hours at work and then 20 hours with the family and then another 20 doing, I don't know what the formula is.
Yeah.
All I would say is just be aware and look for signs. And we talk a lot about this when we talk about balance. Some people believe, in fact, I believe a lot of people think this, that balance
Agree.
is some end
Percent.
objective state.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a percent and it's fixed.
It's a percent of the pie. Yeah.
And it's fixed.
Yeah.
It's like I put 10% here, 15% there, 30% there, 40% there. I don't know if that equals 100, but you guys get it.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even remember the numbers I used.
That was like 30%, bro.
No, I said one of them I said 40%, so I know it's more than 30. Okay, so that's what people think about balance. And when things aren't right, they're like, oh, my balance is off. I need to change the percentages around. And then that becomes the fixed number. It's a lot more dynamic than that, and it's done on a micro level. So the analogy that we've used is being on a surfboard. Balance is a verb. It's an active state. You're doing something. And if you're on a wave, you're leaning forward and back, left and right, coming up, leaning back. You're doing all these different things based on external circumstances that you're responding to. And it's the same with life. And there's going to be seasons in your life where you might really need to pour into your family. And there may be other seasons where you really need to pour into your work because you have a book deadline or a big project or task that's coming up, or you're onboarding a new team, or your company was acquired, or you acquired another organization. So it requires a little bit more effort. So the best thing you can do in those circumstances is to manage expectations by the people who will be impacted by what's going on. So if you have to put a lot more effort, for example, into work, or since you talked about jujitsu, maybe you've got a competition coming up in a month or 2 months, and so you want to get some more mat time, you need to communicate that with your kids so they know what in the world is going on. Same with your spouse. And also, there needs to be an end date to that. So if it's, hey guys, I'm training hard for the next 2 months because I have this meet, and so I'm going to do one extra night a week. So instead of being home, 3 or 4 nights, I'm home only 2 or 3 nights. And this is going to be until the end of January because that's when the meet is. And at the end of the January, I'm going back to my routine that I was before. And then you have to do that.
Yeah.
And they understand, they get it. And then you come back and you manage the expectation again. You say, hey, listen, my meet's over. I did it. I did what I wanted to do, or I didn't accept, or whatever. Here was the results. You guys saw, you watched, and now I'm back. So they can see what that looks like in a very healthy way.
Yeah.
As far as your actual question about being present with your kids, again, I don't know the number, but what I would say to you is the time that you are there, be fully there. That is something that I'm trying to work on. Is I work at home, which can make this challenging. And
Totally
I'm really trying to be truthful with my kids. So for example, my youngest, he's 6 years old. He said, Dad, can you play Legos with me this morning? And I said, no, I can't play with you this morning because I have some work to do, but let's try to find some time this afternoon. And I will 100% find time this afternoon. I haven't always done that. I'm not always great at that, but I said I would, so I have to do it. And we're going to find some time, even if it's just a half an hour. And that half hour is his. It's not yours, Kip. It's not Instagram. It's not my phone. Yeah. It's not my other kids. It's not my wife. It's not lunchtime. That time I'm going to spend with him is 100% his because I told him I would give that to him. So I don't know so much about the time as much as it is the energy in which you show up fully, 100% present.
And I think you do a great job at this, Ryan, of looking for those opportunities to integrate. I think it was not last year, but the year before, I did that bike race with Asia, that loaded jaw, 200-mile bike race. We got away from our kids a lot to train for that race. Mm-hmm. But guess who was with us during the race day? The kids were. Yeah. They're in the support car with me while she was riding. So we could cheer her on. Mm-hmm. And when she was riding, they saw me riding. Like now the value of us taking away from quote unquote family time was even more valuable, I think, because they're like, oh, look at this. Like they're doing this hard thing. Like I want to do that. They're at the
still family time.
Seeing her coming in. Yeah. So look for those opportunities. So that way your thing that you're doing, your personal interest impacts them in a positive way at the same time. And then, and this
Can
is
I say one more thing about that
go ahead.
before you move to your next point?
Yeah.
I actually had something similar to that on Friday. I went into the gym Friday morning, and I'm working out in the morning 4 days a week. So I went in on Friday morning, and I wasn't feeling it very well, and I was short on time. So I only got halfway through my workout. Johnny Loretti programs for me, and I only got through half of the program because I had to get going and get to work and do other stuff. And then I was thinking about it. I'm like, man, I really need to go back and finish my workout. I said I would do it. I need to finish my workout. But
Like
my
it.
wife, she ended up going with my daughter. Oh, they had a women's Christmas event or something they went to. And so my two oldest boys were at lifting, and I was with my youngest son, my 6-year-old. And I'm like, man, I need to go back. I'm like, but I got my 6-year-old. What do I do? I'm like, just bring him with you.
Yeah.
Why can't he just come with you? So he came with me. I started the workout. He saw a few little exercises. He's like, Dad, what's that? And I would show him. He's like, what's that? And I would show him. And he was working like the barbell curls because he wanted to see if he could do it. And then my older two boys' coach asked him, they said, hey, do you want to deadlift? And he was a little nervous, but finally we talked him into going to deadlift. And so their coach took some time and spent some time with my 6-year-old and did some deadlift stuff. It was awesome. You know, it took my workout took longer, of course, than it would have normally. But then
Yeah.
after we were done, we got some hurdles and put them out on the AstroTurf and let them jump. And we worked the agility drill. We were just having a good time, but we were working out. So we had the time spent together. I finished my workout, which was important to me. So I bridged that integrity gap. All of my boys got to see that Dad was there doing the workout while they were doing the workout. It was so positive in any different angle that you could possibly think about.
Yeah. It was perfect. It was
Right.
perfect.
Well,
Yeah.
you were going to say another example or something.
The other thing I was going to say, and I stole this from, I think, I'm not sure who posted this on social media. Someone posted this on social media. Maybe it was like Jim Quick or it was someone, and it was about being present. Like, hey, dads, make sure that you're being present. And it was this video of this dad recording his little son at a school assembly for like some award thing. And the whole time, the little boy, you could see it on his eyes. He's looking around. Where's my parents? Where's my parents? Do they see me? Do they see me? And I couldn't help but watch that and go, that's the meeting where I say, that's a waste of my effing time. I got work to do. It's not important for me to be at this stupid school assembly thing.
Yep.
But it's important to them. And so it's like, man, I need to remember it's not about efficiency, getting the job done. Sometimes it's about what your son or my son thinks is important.
Right.
And me being present at
how
those
they interpret
moments.
that.
Yeah. And
Good.
making sure I'm connected to that.
Cool. What's next?
All right. Camden Lau. I'm 20 years old with a wife and a 9-month-old baby. I work a very demanding job in architecture sales that it can range from working 40 hours to 100 hours a week. The money's good and I love what I do. My boss also happens to be my dad. My true passion, however, is in politics, and I want to run for office someday. I'm doing my best to be involved in the community while still being present with my family and keeping up with my job. How do I balance all of the stress? And how do I eventually leave my dad?
Yeah. Well, again, I think we actually hit on the two answers in the previous question with balance. Yeah. So there's going to be times like running for office, times that are going to be busier than others, but we live in a really cool time where you can pursue endeavors very, very simply, not necessarily easy, but very simply using social media. You can pursue some of that those political aspirations. You can talk about politics. You can share your politics. You can do all of that.
Creating momentum around that. Yeah.
And building your constituency right now, right? Yeah. Build that right now. If you can build that now, then when you start to make that transition into politics, it's going to be that much easier, and it's not going to detract from your current work or from your family. You can do that now on lunch breaks, before, after work, that sort of thing. So you should do that. Those are the balance that we talked about, but then there's communication too. So we talked about that in the previous question. You need to communicate with your wife, make sure she knows what your aspirations are. You probably also ought to communicate with your dad if you haven't as well.
Ahead of time, not ahead like of time. I'm ready to leave. He should know that this is an interest of yours and that you're going in that direction, maybe.
Right. And I think that would be important. And also there might be some expectations or boundaries that you need to set around your schedule, which is, hey, listen, dad, I've got these other aspirations. I've got a 9-month-old. I'm newly married, which I imagine is the case, fairly newly married,
Yeah.
20 years old. So I can do 40 hours. I can even do 60 hours occasionally. I'm not going to be able to do 100 hours. And you might need to actually tell him that, or not. I don't know your situation. All I'm saying is that there might be some boundaries that you need to create and put in place. Maybe you guys need the money. I don't know if your wife is a stay-at-home mom or if she's in the workforce. I don't know what the financial situation is, but there's certainly got to be some boundaries in place between the work and the family stuff. And you need to have boundaries in both, by the way. You also have to have boundaries for your family.
Yeah, that's a big fluctuation, 40 to 100.
Absolutely.
That's stressful on for me, that would be stressful on my family to go, 41 weeks, all of a sudden 100. That's tough. Yeah.
So think about that. Think about the communication, think about the expectations. And once you start doing that and talking about that and being open with that and then living that out, you're going to find where you need to be. You're going to find that groove.
Okay. Rick, Blalock, it may have been covered before, but any resources that can help me grow in self-confidence, growing in self-confidence, recommendations and resources.
Just go to orderaman.com/battle ready. And that's a great resource. It's 30 days. It's a free program that we've put together and made available. It's 17 emails. And over the course of 17 emails over 30 days, great timing, by the way, end of the year, you're going to go through and you're going to start to identify a vision for yourself. That's very important. A heading, you need to know where you're going. Then you're going to come up with objectives in your life, things that you want to accomplish in your life over a 90-day period. So you're going to identify what's important, why it's important. Is this feasible? What's the acronym for goal setting? Is it time? What is the acronym? Why can't I think? Specific, measure. Oh,
simple.
Smart goals.
Smart goals. That's right.
Specific, measurable.
We don't do goals here, guys, so we don't know what these are.
I just haven't used SMART for a while.
Smart.
Attainable, achievable, realistic, and time sensitive, something like that. I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. But we're going to help you go through the way that you could create objectives that are measurable and things you can accomplish. And then we're going to help you identify tactics. And tactics are things you can do on a daily basis that will help you achieve those objectives. And there's some other things in there, and I won't get into it. But what I will say, because you're talking about, was confidence what he used?
Yes, confidence.
That we as men are most confident when we know where we're going and we're actively working to get there. Those are the two variables that need to be in place. You need to know where you're going and actively be working to get there. Let's look at a man's life who doesn't have those two things. Let's take the first one. He doesn't know where he's going. Well, now you're aimless, you're directionless, you're without a rudder, as they would say, and you're tossed to and fro by the doctrine of popular culture. So that might be society's telling you what to be outraged and upset about. Society saying, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. Maybe your boss is pulling on you, or your wife is pulling one direction and your employer is pulling another direction, and you are rudderless and you're being pulled in so many different directions. How is that going to help your self-confidence? It's not. So that's variable number one. Variable number two is you actively need to be working to get there, because I'll tell you, it's very, very frustrating when you have a direction, a heading, a goal that you want, and you know you're not doing what it takes to get there. Yeah. That is the antithesis of self-confidence. But if you're actively, and I didn't say you're there. That's not actually what builds the confidence. What builds the confidence is you're on the path. You're doing the work necessary to get there. And so the Battle Ready program is going to teach you those two variables. What heading? Where am I going? And then what exactly do I need to do on a daily basis to achieve what it is I'm after? That's how you build self-confidence. There's no other way to do it.
Yeah, I like that. All right. Brent Jessup, stress management and time management. What have you learned and noticed with how they correlate in your life, specifically with business? I just started a new role at work as a project manager, and I'm looking for how to better handle stress, the stress side of it.
Yeah, I know that when I'm the most stressed, it's always a result of improper scheduling, planning. It's always revolved around time. So
Yeah.
if I stack my day to the brim, meeting, and I have like 5 or 6 meetings in that day, I know that's going to be a stressful day for me.
Yeah.
And sometimes those happen, but if you can plan ahead of time and get everything ready and in place before, like for example, if I have a busy day with work, but I still want to get my training in, whether it's jujitsu or lifting, then a simple way to help with that is the night before, lay out my gym clothes. Just lay them out and get them ready. So when I wake up, all I have to do is put them on and go clean myself up a little bit and go to the gym. I just saved, probably by doing it the night before, probably I would say 10 to 15 minutes, roughly.
Yeah.
Just like that, because I had a little bit of foresight and I did some planning the day before. Same thing with notes. If I've got a podcast that I need to do, I'm going to make some notes and think about what I do, but it's not the day of, it's not the minute before I'm going to do the podcast. It's well before. It's 1 or 2 days before I actually have the conversation. So I'm not stressed out that way. The other thing that I do, and this is a great strategy for time management, is always give yourself a buffer or margin before and after meetings. So if I have a meeting, for example, this is a meeting. We're doing this podcast. This is a meeting. It goes from 11 to 12 roughly.
Yep.
Sometimes we get started a little late. Sometimes it goes over because the questions are really good and we're going to go to like 12:15. I'm not overly stressed if it goes to 12:15. I can be fully present. If it goes to 12:15, it's fine because my next meeting isn't scheduled for at least 12:30. So I put
and I've done the same thing.
buffer.
Like I block 30 minutes extra for this just in case. Yeah.
And then if we do end at noon, well, I have 30 minutes. So what do I do in that 30 minutes? Well, I got to hammer out some emails because I'm not going to have any other time during the day. Or maybe I need to wrap a Christmas gift because Christmas is coming up and I've got like 5 or 6 gifts right there in my closet. Well, okay, I can take, 10 minutes and wrap a couple of those real quick. So I use that buffer time for either the overflow of a previous meeting, or I use it for other tasks that I can get done, cranking out emails, wrapping a Christmas gift, doing 40 or 50 air squats. That's something I do. I've got some weights over here that occasionally I'll use, or the little TRX bands that's hooked into my closet door. And I can just do some like pull-ups or bicep curls with them or some push-ups. So I'm using that time effectively. And I've noticed that when I create the buffers and the margins, I don't get stressed out because every meeting is planned and I'm ready for it when it comes up. That's been the biggest help for me.
Totally. I'm going to project a little bit, right? Some of my biggest stress is also when I overcommit and I don't get done what I plan to get done. And some of that's time management, but the other part of this is me just overcommitting, right? Me saying no to things, or maybe even me dinking around, right? Like I had a solid day and I got distracted. I didn't get those things done. Oh, I can do it tomorrow. But how do I feel about myself? That causes stress for myself, to be honest. Some of the best days when I come home and my stress levels are the lowest, it's because I killed it at work.
Of course.
That's why I got tons of stuff done. And there's such a snowball effect. I'm sure this is the case with you, right? Like if my workout's in the morning, so let me give you a bad day. A bad day is this. Alarm goes off at 5 and I hit snooze. I don't go. I get up at 6. I go to the gym. I cut my workout early because I didn't go to the gym early enough to be able to get home. So I don't do the last couple of exercises. I rush home. I'm getting dressed. I hop on a call while I'm getting ready because I was at the gym too long and I didn't wake up early enough. I'm in the vehicle on the phone call, carrying shit. And then I get in the office and then I throw my stuff down. I run to the next. And the rest of the day is a shit show. And then I come home and I'm pissed.
Yep.
You didn't get nothing done.
Then you take it out on your family.
Why? Because I didn't get my ass out of bed when I planned to.
Yeah.
And I didn't honor myself and the commitments that I had planned. So I don't feel good about myself. I don't feel good about myself.
To go back to self-confidence.
No, I feel like a shit. I feel worthless.
Yep.
So I didn't get stuff done. And now I come home and like want everything at home to be perfect to help bridge the gap of how I'm feeling.
To actually
so
make
unfair.
you're putting your lack of planning on Asia or your kids.
Yeah. I'm like, kids, our house should be perfect. Everything should be perfect to deal with my bad day.
Yeah. Man, we all do that. I actually had a similar issue take place this morning. I woke up on time. My alarm was set for 6:30. I woke up at 6:29. And I'm like, man, don't you hate when you do that? You wake up like right before your alarm goes off. Like I could have an extra minute, literally 1 minute.
Like it really matters. Like, like today you're like, oh, I feel better today because I slept those 5 extra minutes.
Yeah. So I woke up right before my alarm went off. I got changed. I sat on the couch with a couple of my kids who were up and just watched whatever cartoon they happened to be watching. And then I went to the gym and it all fell apart from there. I wasn't feeling it. I was going slow. On my programming, it'll say, do these reps, for example, and then take a 30-second break, do the separate superset 60-second break. My breaks were not 30 and 60 seconds. They were like 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Cause what was I doing? I got my phone out and I posted something that I had scheduled the night before last night. And then I got looking and reading stuff and I look at the clock. The workout was supposed to take 57 minutes because it times it. And I think it took me 57 minutes last time for the same workout. It took me an hour and 23 minutes today.
Yeah.
And that's 30 minutes essentially that I could have used to, well, here's what we did. Me and my second son did some store orders. There was 28 orders that we needed to fill this morning. Guess how many we got done? 12. Because I wasn't home 30 minutes earlier and him and mom and the other siblings went to town to get some Christmas stuff. Okay, now I'm already behind. And when he comes back, maybe I want to do more orders. These other people, they're not getting their orders done because of my scheduling. And that stresses me out. And it just compounds, like you're saying, all day, every day. It just compounds over and over again.
Yeah.
Manage
Rob Christensen, when you plan to make a big move to improve your immediate family, but subsequently distances to our
subsequently.
Okay, wait, hold on. Now, let me adjust his verbiage here.
Can you adjust it on the fly while you're reading it?
Yeah. So when you plan to make a big move to improve your immediate family, but it ends up distancing to your extended family. So he's making a big move to improve his immediate family, but then it's affecting his extended family. He doesn't provide definition of that. That part of my family is very important to my wife and the only real reason to not go now. How do I know I am pursuing the right move for us when it may even in the short term hurt her by being distant from her family? So so his big move is to improve his family. Of course, them moving is going to affect her family. And then how does he how does he know that he's pursuing the right move when this could distance his wife from her family?
So when he says move, he's talking about physically moving.
Yes. Yeah. I wasn't. That threw me because I was like, so a big move to improve his immediate family, and it's going to distance his wife from hers.
Okay. So the first thing you need to do is get on the same page with your wife as far as why you're making this big move. And if she's on board with it, awesome. Now you're ready to go. If she's not on board with it, it may not be the right time, frankly, because you committed to being with her and she committed to being with you, and you got to do it together. So yes, I believe that you are the man of the house. I believe that you make the decisions as far as it goes to leading in the direction of the family. I believe that, but I also believe that her opinion and her feedback and her participation and involvement with it is a pretty crucial factor.
Well, getting that is part of leading.
Yes. So if she's on board, that doesn't mean everything's going to be great, because there are going to be things. But if she's on board, then she might understand the sacrifices that need to be made because she's on board. So let's just assume that she's on board, because if she's not on board, the answer is you guys need more time, more conversations to figure out how you can get on the same page. So let's just assume that she is. There's still going to be some sacrifices on her part. It happened with us. My wife is very, very close to her family, and all of her family is in Utah. Now, since they've kind of scattered throughout the states a little bit, but they were all in southern Utah, and she didn't have that. You got to think about ways that she can be part of the family still. What are the solutions that you might offer or suggest? What solutions will she come up with it? Is it travel? Is it her going home every so often? Is it finding a really strong support group in the current community, whether it's through church attendance or some sort of other, other program or women's group? I don't know what that might look like for her. Is there Zoom calls that you can do? What's the schedule like to call grandparents and aunts and uncles and all this kind of thing? Start working through that with her so that she feels more comfortable about staying connected in some way to her family, even though she may not be as physically present. This is all leadership stuff, communication, expectations, but it all stems from making sure that you're on the same page.
Ryan, I want to cover the psychology of this, right? Let's assume Rob, and everyone listening, you can relate this to leadership. Moving's the right decision. It's a done deal. You don't need her buy-in. So what happens to Rob here when he makes this call? He doesn't lead from the front, doesn't get buy-in, and he just straight up moves.
Mm-hmm.
How does that go for his wife, or what ends up happening from your perspective?
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She's going to be the typical thing.
Sure. Yeah. She's going to be bitter. There's going to be a lot of resentment that builds up when the family is doing Christmas and things like that. And all the family and siblings and aunts and uncles are together. She's going to start to resent you because she's not there. Like this is a recipe for disaster. And another part of this is that she may never tell you about the resentment that she has towards you.
Totally.
Because she's a strong, independent, assertive woman, and she may never tell you. And you may feel like, whether it's because you're arrogant, and look, I'm speaking from experience, whether it's because we're arrogant or because we're distracted, we may never see the signs until it's too late.
Yeah. And then she's been resenting you for years.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it's been years of her working on it and you not acknowledging it for whatever reason. And now it's just created too much division and resentment in the relationship. It will not go over well.
Well, and think through this, right? Like if Ryan and I we're working on something, right? And so we're dealing with some current stuff, and we're doing some leadership development planning. And I go, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And Ryan's like, I think we should do it this way. And we don't give enough attention to it. And Ryan bulldozes me and says, you know what, man, I founded this shit. Like, shut up. This is what we're going to do. Get in line, get compliant, do it. And I go, you know what? Fine. I'll do what you want. I'm in the category of compliance.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when that leadership module we're working on isn't going very smooth, do you think I push through and make sure it's successful? No. I'm going to immediately go, see, I knew it. I knew this was a dumb idea. Yeah. Right? I'm not going to push through. I'm not bought in. I was only doing it because to get him off my back anyway. And so the first sign of trouble is I'm going to latch back to the idea that I never liked this idea to begin with. Now, Dick, on the flip side, Ryan goes out of his way, leads from the front, does a great job, allowing me to have some buy-in in it, and I'm part of the process. Now, when I reach a roadblock, how do I approach the roadblock? I push through.
Yeah.
This baby's going to work. I'm fully committed. I love this idea. So how we mentally look at the situation, we will find evidence, self-fulfilling prophecies to prove that moving, in Rob's example, that moving was such a bad idea. She's going to be looking for it all the time for years.
Yeah.
Versus if it's her idea and she's also bought into it, then she's going to think it's a great idea and she's going to look for the positive in it and she's going to push through. and she's going to show up in a really powerful way. And then we could probably talk another 30 minutes about how this shows up in your kids when she's saying, undermining you, saying, I knew we shouldn't have moved your dad, blah, blah, blah. And what inconsistency that creates in the relationship between your children and each other. Jeez.
Well, and even if she's not excited about it, if she's bought in, she may not be fully on, but if she's bought in, even if it's not seamless, and it won't be, there's going to be challenges, she'll fight through those challenges. But I will also say there may be instances where you do have to put your foot down and say, no, this is what we're doing. We X, Y, and Z. As a business owner, there might be situations, Kip, where I say, hey, look, I appreciate your feedback. I appreciate your concerns. We're going this direction because of, and it might be a legitimate reason. So what do you do to create buy-in? I'll tell you what, you give the person responsibility. So if I said, Kip, look, I know that you're not thrilled about this. I know that you thought we should have went a different way, but we're going this way. And I have to make that decision for this business and the men we're serving. And here's why I'm doing it. But I know you're not excited about it. And I understand everything that you told me, although I made this decision. But I would really still like you to be a part of this, because I feel like what you bring to the table, although this is not your plan, what you bring to the table is invaluable. So my thought is to have you manage X, Y, and Z as we go this direction. Would you be willing to do that?
Yeah.
Now I'm getting your buy-in. You're like, okay, at least he values me. I'm excited about this.
Heard. Yep.
Yeah. And so I give you some responsibility, and now you do it, and now you're in, because if it doesn't work, it's not all on my shoulders. I gave you some of that responsibility. So now it's on your shoulders too.
Well, and by you taking the effort to explain, hey, Kip, we're going to go this direction, and this is why. And if you do a good enough job, and if it's a good enough why, like, I should be able to go, yeah, that makes sense. I get that. Does it make sense? Even though it's may not the original direction I'd like to go, if you do a well enough job in communicating it, then I see the vision, I'm part of it, and then you're going to get buy-in that way.
Right.
Yeah.
I wrote something down because I didn't want to forget this. I just wanted to make sure I throw this little disclaimer. We're giving you guys a lot of advice, and it might sound like we know what we're talking about.
Well, so I do, at least. Yeah.
Kip does. I don't. The disclaimer I want to put in here is that for every bit of advice that we give to you, I could quite honestly, I could preface it with, I wish I would have done ...
Totally.
Like, oh, talk to your wife about X, Y, and Z could be prefaced with, I wish I would have talked to my wife this way, or manage your time better. I wish in the past I would have managed my time more effectively. Everything that we're sharing are, for me anyways, are lessons that I have learned the hard way, and many more lessons to learn the hard way, I'm sure. So just know all of what we're saying could easily be prefaced with, if I were to do it over again, here's what I would do, which is important to go back and review your progress and have that mindset, because then it helps you the next time you're in a relationship, or the next time you start a business, or the next time you have a confrontation with an employee. It will help you because you went back and analyzed what you did wrong and what you did right before.
Totally. I mean, literally, while we're talking, I'm actually thinking of a very thing where I said, hey, this is the direction we're going to go. And I didn't say these words, but I more or less was, and I don't give a shit about what any of you guys think. This is what we're doing. So of course I'm like,
I just want to put that out there. I see so many people, and I know I've been guilty of it too, but I see so many people on platforms like we have, and we have a big platform, fortunately, and I'm so grateful for it, where they make you seem like they have all of the answers and everything's figured out and they're perfect. And I just want to be sure that you know that I am not perfect, and I fall and I falter and I screw up. And I'm kind of talking to myself as much as I'm talking to you when we're trying to provide advice.
Yeah. We're on the path.
Yes.
All right. Casey Rasmussen, what is the biggest challenge outside of alcohol to get to your 4th month of sobriety? Second question, if you will, how many days sober were you when it hit that sobriety is the correct path? I see.
So
I'm
what,
slaughtering
so,
questions today, guys. So my apologies. Go ahead.
well,
Sorry.
I'm glad that you said, well, I'm glad I said what I said just a minute ago. I didn't know this was the next question, but I'm really glad that I prefaced it with, hey, look, I wish I would have, because here's the thing that a lot of people might not know. And I shared this on social media about a week ago, that I am a recovering alcoholic. And I know that I've talked about alcohol, like, wait, stay away from it. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't. It took me a long time to figure this out. And so, for years, I've really struggled with alcohol. And it got to the point where I would literally drink a half a pint or more of whiskey in a single sitting and just get wrecked during the day. I'm talking like in the morning, during the day, like not, it was bad. It was really bad. And it snuck up on me, and I didn't realize how hard it was, not only on myself, but my family, namely the people around me. So, his second question was how
Biggest,
how soon I knew that it was the right path.
yeah, the
I knew
biggest
beforehand.
challenge outside of alcohol. And then when
Okay.
did you know that sobriety was the right path? Like how many days in where you're like, okay, this is important? Or yeah.
That I knew before sobriety.
Okay.
I mean, I knew, I can't tell you how many times that I was drunk or hungover, or even in the middle of drinking, and I'm like, man, this is bad. I got to get on this. I got to get help. I got to talk to somebody. I mean,
Like you
countless
knew.
number of times.
Yeah.
I knew.
Yeah.
And I think most of us know when we're doing things that are destructive or unhelpful or unproductive. Like, we know.
Yeah. You were typically excusing ourselves. Yeah.
And that's what I did. So I would be determined this time, like, this is the last time I'm going to get drunk, and I'm going to tell people, and I'm going to go get help, and I'm going to figure this out. And then I would sober up, and I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that. And what I would say, this was my justification. Ryan, you're not an alcoholic. I mean, you may like to get drunk, but you're not an alcoholic. One, you can stop anytime you want. That's what I told myself.
Yeah.
And two, you're super high functioning. So that's what I said.
Yeah.
Maybe you're an
Like,
alcoholic, but you're
I'm not
high
on the
functioning.
streets. I'm succeeding in life. This is,
Yeah.
I'm the exception to the rule.
Yeah. I've got this great job. I've got my family. I've got the podcast. We're reaching millions of men. Like, yeah, I drink, and I know I shouldn't, but like, I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
So I knew even beforehand.
How long it be, like, if you're drinking right now and you're like, hey, like, I need to stop this or whatever, and then you'd sober up. How long were you sober before you'd be like, no, I'm okay? Like, is that a day?
I
You know
was
what I'm saying?
at like, before I stopped drinking 4 months ago, a little over 4 months ago now, I wouldn't have very many hours during the day where I wasn't drunk.
Okay. So this isn't like I'd go a couple weeks kind of thing, sober,
No,
and then lapse or whatever.
no, daily,
Daily.
like morning, like when I woke up, from the time I woke up early enough where I could just go to the store and get a drink, to, I say falling asleep, but passing out drunk.
Yeah.
It was bad, man. Really, really bad. So what outside of it have I learned or that's a challenge? Is that what he said?
Yeah.
Just
Biggest challenge outside of it. Yeah.
working on rebuilding the relationships I damaged, like building up trust with the people that I care about. Like that to me is harder than sobriety. Because the sobriety is like, okay, I'm sober. I have the things right here. Like, I've got,
That's
4
in
months
you.
of,
Yeah.
like,
That's in your
I've got 'em.
control.
Yeah, that's easy. That's not easy. It's simple. I go a day and I check it off the thing, and I've got over 4 months now. And that hasn't been too challenging. But the harder thing is, how do I get my wife and kids to trust me again? Like, how do I rebuild the, I don't even know what to say, but like, how to rebuild. Yeah. It's just trust, credibility.
The months of withdrawals from the trust bank account, and somehow
Yeah.
get that balance back as fast as possible.
And it can't be fast, because the
Yeah.
only thing that can be fast is words. Like, hey, I know I've done this and this and this, but this time's different. I'm going to change. I'm going to get better. Those are words. Those mean nothing.
Not evidence. Yeah. Not evidence. Yeah.
It's not only is it not evidence, that's neutral. It's worse than that because of all the other times where I've lied and deceived. So it's worse than neutral. It's like a slap in the face every time I say, no, I'm going to be better. No, I'm going to do this. No, I'm going to do that. And they just have to see that I'm doing it over a period of time. And it may never be fully repaired, you know, and I can't control that. That's the hardest part. I can't control what you guys think of me. I made this post a week ago, and I told guys in the Iron Council a couple of months ago, but I kind of came out with this more publicly about a week ago.
So
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't want anyone to grab that soundbite that Ryan came out roughly a week ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or maybe that was the call to action.
Now they will.
I'm sorry. I should have,
no, it's fine.
Okay, go
ahead. Yeah. So I shared that news a week ago. And one of my biggest concerns in doing so is, how are people going to respond to this? Like, here I am, a guy who's telling other men how to be better men, how to be better fathers, how to be better husbands, how many people are going to say, oh, you're a hypocrite? That's true. How many people are going to say you're a fraud? Well, to a degree, that's true. Now, I will say none of what I've ever shared is inaccurate. I just, at times in my life, found it hard for me to follow. And I still will. All of us will. Yeah. So that's, I think, hypocritical, but what we're sharing is not fraudulent information. So those are right. Yeah. Those are concerns of mine that I have as I shared this. But I mean, the support is overwhelmingly positive. But even if it wasn't, I can't control how somebody's listening to this right now might think. They might think, you're a piece of crap. You deceived us, this and this and this. You're not who you say you are. I can't, that's out of my control. All I can do is work on improving myself and getting better. And I'm actually really appreciative that the support has been overwhelmingly positive. So I hope that answers it.
A related question from Jaden Robinson. He says, thanks for sharing your path of sobriety with us. How do we help friends and family in similar situations? What would have helped you make a challenge earlier? Or is it something that you need to come to the realization for yourself?
I don't think you need to come to the realization yourself for you to change, but I do think that something needs to change in you for it to happen. Maybe you just need a mirror held up in front of you. And so to answer the question, when I shared this news with my closer inner circle. So the way that I shared it was, I shared it with you and my closer inner circle, my family, immediate family. And then I shared it with the Iron Council because I felt it was really, really important. They knew what was going on. And then I've shared it, more broadly and publicly lately. I had more than a couple people, when I said I'm a recovering alcoholic, say, yeah, I know. And I was like, what? Because I was a closet drink. I didn't want anybody to know.
Yeah.
So I said, in my mind, I'm like, really? Like, I was kind of angry, actually. And I'm not angry at those people, and I know why they didn't tell me, but I was angry that they didn't tell me. I'm like, wait, you knew I was an alcoholic and you didn't say anything? And I actually asked a couple of people, I'm like, why didn't you tell me that? I didn't realize how bad it had gotten. Why didn't you get in my face? And they said, Ryan, how would you have responded? And admittedly, I would have responded poorly in that time. I would have. But I still feel like they should have told me.
Yeah.
Like if they really cared, I'm trying not to project. I know these people care, but in my mind, I was like, man, if they really cared about, they would have told me. And then I think about like, what's What's the risk in doing that? Well, it's me blowing up towards them. And you know what? I think that's worth it.
Hmm.
And if I see a friend or a family member struggling with alcohol, like if I see you, Kip, struggling with alcohol, I'm going to confront you about it.
Yeah.
And it might damage our friendship, and it might create some barriers or rifts or animosity between us because you're not ready to hear that. I don't know. But in this moment, in this experience, because I do care about you, I would be willing to risk that in this moment.
Yeah.
And that would be the sacrifice I'd be willing to pay because I care about you and I want you to get the help you need.
Here's the interesting part. So statistically, most people, we have internal dialogue of when we should say something. And our mathematical brains, right? The math part of the decision is usually we jump to the conclusion of what will happen if I say something. But we're not asking ourselves internally, should we say something? We're saying, what will happen if I say something?
Good point.
And we're making the conclusion that we're going to do it poorly. And thus, we would rather have the surety of the current relationship than we would rather like, oh, I'm going to say something and then he's going to get upset and then it's going to go south. And this has been on my mind, right? We were talking about this earlier around accountability. And it's really interesting. Like, think through the scenarios, guys. Like, who's the I think it was Stanford that did the study where they had people like shocking other people in a test, thinking they might be killing people. And they asked them, did you think about speaking up? Most of them, yeah. Right? But they didn't. And so our default behavior is to avoid conflict often. And it's amazing how we don't go, should I say something? Should something be said? Period. Yes or no? And if the answer is yes, then the next thought of the process is, okay, how do I do it?
How am I going to do this? Yeah.
How am I going to do this in an effective way where Ryan knows that I care, that I appreciate him as an individual, and I'm actually here just to because I love him.
Right.
How do I do that?
Yeah.
And that's what we should be asking ourselves in these examples, not, oh, we make the assumption that it's going to go south. Yeah. It's like, no, yes or no, should something be said? And then figure out how to do it effectively.
Well, and one of the things you said is we think about what would happen if you told that individual. Let me flip that around. What would happen if you didn't?
Totally.
I mean, if nobody ever told me or was willing to confront me about it, I could be dead right now. If I'm not dead right now, certainly if I keep that over the next several years, decade, 20, I'm going to die early, prematurely. Yeah. I might kill somebody in the process. I mean,
you might get alcohol poisoning.
I mean, look, it could go very bad. Like, but if you think about that, I would also say this: what can I do to help? Number one is actually have the conversation, and then maybe follow up with an individual periodically. Yeah. And it might not even be so much about like, hey, how's the sobriety going? But hey, Kip, UFC fights this weekend. I've got some guys coming over. You want to come over? By the way, don't have alcohol there at the party.
Yeah.
Right. But hey, we've got some guys coming over. You want to come over? And you don't even talk about it with them. Just invite them over. Hey, I'm going golfing Saturday morning. We have room for one more. You want to come with us? That's how you help.
Yeah.
You just be there. You befriend them. And then if they say something to you, just listen. If they're willing to open up about it and say, hey, here's what I'm dealing with. Here's what I'm struggling with. Be very cautious on the giving of advice. Unsolicited advice never really goes over well. And even when somebody's bringing something up to you, unless they specifically ask you what you should do, they're probably not asking for advice. They probably just want to know you care and that they have somewhere they can be a sounding board to.
Yeah, and vent too.
Yep.
Let me run this by you, Ryan, because, and I haven't shared this with you, but like, when we first started talking about this, I'll be honest, I I internalized a little bit and said, wait a second, right? Like, how long has this been going on? And it's really easy for us to be like, oh, Ryan this, Ryan that, or pass judgment, right? It's really easy for us to pass judgment.
Of course.
But seldom do we ever internalize it. And I immediately got in the direction of like, man, how am I showing up as a friend where I'm oblivious to this?
No, I don't think that.
No, you don't
No,
think we should like be evaluating going, because I mean, and I maybe
I
remove
think
yourself from the conversation a little bit, but
I
like,
think if you
how
knew,
strong
Kip,
is your relationship that
no,
you wouldn't be willing to bring it up?
no,
No.
not
Okay.
that. No. Okay, so I thought you were talking about something different. So let's hit on this. You shouldn't beat yourself up because you don't know about what somebody's dealing with, because they might be really good at hiding it. And I
Yeah.
was really good at hiding it. I would do podcasts with you, Kip, drunk.
And by the way, like when you said like someone's like, yeah, I do, I'm like, I obviously my alcohol radar is destroyed because I have no idea.
It's not, it's just, you might not know. I was
Yeah.
really good at hiding it. Maybe I wish I wouldn't have been so good, and then more people would have known and I wouldn't have been able to hide.
Yeah.
But and so that's not like, it wouldn't expect you. I wouldn't expect you to know that. That was my whole thing. Like, I didn't want people to know.
Yeah. You didn't want anybody to know. But
Right. So let
do
me
you
address
think
the other
some,
question though.
okay.
Well, go ahead. What were you going to say? And then I'll
Well, I
address the other
just,
thing.
do you feel that certain relationships in your life might be lacking, that you didn't have that person that you
No,
could tell, or
no,
like not a single person, no one was
no,
allowed in, not even your best of best?
no. And so that's
Okay.
what I was going to hit on, is you kind of make it seem like you felt bad that I didn't feel comfortable enough telling you.
Well, not
And
Bill bad, but like, how am I showing up in our relationship
right.
that you
It's
wouldn't have
not,
felt comfortable confiding in
no,
me? Okay.
no, it's not indicative of your friendship or how you should have been showing up for me. It's not indicative of that.
Okay.
It's on me. So guys, like, we can't feel guilty about that. Like, oh, am I not showing up enough? Bro, I didn't tell anybody. I mean, my wife knew. Even my two older kids knew, but I
Yeah.
didn't tell anyone. And it, like, I wasn't interested in letting anybody know because it reflected on me. I knew that.
Yeah.
And so it had, I had a couple people reach out like, oh, I wish I could have been a better friend. There's nothing you could have done, nothing a year ago, 6 months ago, that you could have done where I'd been like, oh, I feel comfortable enough telling Kip.
Yeah. You wouldn't have.
Nothing, nothing. So yeah, we have to be very careful of beating ourselves up. Like, oh, I wish I was a better friend. I've experienced this with people in my life who have committed suicide. Man,
Yeah.
I'm a horrible friend. Not if you don't know, like, if you genuinely don't know, that's not on you. Now, if you
Yeah.
do know and you don't say anything, there's some responsibility there. I do think there's some
Yeah.
responsibility there. It's not your fault,
Yeah.
but there is some responsibility. But yeah, if you don't know, there was nothing 6 months ago that you could have done that I've been like, yeah, I feel comfortable telling Kip now. Nope, that would not have happened.
Got it. Okay. I mean, it's good to always self-evaluate a little bit, because I was kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, man, like, I don't know.
I had friends who I would have a drink with, a beer with, and one in particular reached out. I'm not going to use names, but one in particular
Yeah.
reached out after I had shared this and said, man, I'm so sorry I contributed to this problem of yours.
I'd feel
It's
that
like,
way.
dude, you did not contribute to it. I'm a grown ass man.
Yeah, but you
You
know what I'm
didn't
saying.
contribute.
Yeah.
I understand the sentiment, but nobody contributed it to it because they didn't know. If they would have known and blatantly like, I don't care about that, we're going to get sloshed, like, that would have been a problem. But if you don't know, that's not your fault. It's not your
Yeah.
response. It was my responsibility. I'm a big boy. I make my own choices, good and bad, and it's just not on anybody else.
Yeah. George Sykes has a good question I think is related to this. He says, do you find it difficult to give yourself grace?
Yes.
I find it extremely difficult to give myself grace, and I'm starting to think it's because I often expect too much from myself. What say you?
Yes. 100%. I'm
Yeah.
tore up about it, man. I really am. Like, I have a guilty conscience. Not so much anymore because I've been more open about it and I brought it to light. So that guilty conscience isn't quite there. But yeah, I'm remorseful about past mistakes. I'm remorseful about the way I've treated specifically my wife and kids. Like, I'm
Yeah.
remorseful about that. And that won't ever go away. Totally. I'll
Yeah.
tell you what's made it feel better is, and this is why I made that post and why I'm even talking about it now. When I was writing that up, my hands were literally shaking, like not from like withdrawals or anything, but because I was so scared of posting
Yeah.
it. I was I was teary eyed and my hands were shaking. My like as I was punching into the keyboard the message I wanted to share,
Totally.
and part of that was because of the fear of the way that I would be judged for sharing it. But I sat there. I had the whole thing typed out and the picture of my little calendar, and I had it all typed out and ready to go. And I hovered over my finger over submit or whatever it is for probably 10 minutes. And I'm like, I don't know. Do I hit this submit button? Do I just delete it? Do I save it as a draft and think on it? I don't know. I don't know. I'm like, no, just hit send. Send.
F it.
Yeah. And I did. And the reason I did, to George's question, is because I just thought it would help somebody else. I just thought if I shared it with somebody, then, and I did not want to share it. I could have gone
Yeah.
my
It
entire
doesn't
life.
benefit you.
No, I could have gone my
Let's be really
entire
clear.
life with not sharing this with anybody, just fixing
Yeah.
it and not sharing it, just burying
Yeah.
it. But I shared it because I knew somebody was going to benefit from it. And they did. I can't tell you how many incredible conversations have taken place in the Iron Council, specifically in the sobriety channel, and how fast that thing grew because I shared.
Yeah.
Or the countless messages I've received over the past 5, 6, 7 days since I've shared it about other people's struggles, and hey, you've inspired me to tell people about my issues. That helps me overcome some of the guilt and shame that I have.
Do you feel there's power in just being like authentic,
Yes.
where you're just like, hey, here it is. Like,
Yeah, I don't have to hide.
I'm not hiding. Like, by putting it out there, it's just
Yeah,
clean, cut, dry.
there's no hiding. I mean, look, when somebody would ask a question about alcohol, or I do a podcast about alcohol or whatever, like in my mind, I'm like, man, I know I can't kick this. I know the advice to give. This is true. And I couldn't even get, and so it played with me. It toyed with me.
Yeah.
And now I don't have that. I can talk about it and be like, yeah, I don't know. I don't have the answer. Or here's what I'm working on.
Or I'm working on it. Yeah.
There's a lot of liberty and freedom in that. Yeah.
I find giving yourself grace, back to George's question, difficult, because even if you like, I had a great conversation with, it was Dan from the Iron Council on Friday. He had a good question. And I actually spoke with him after that Friday call last Friday, and probably for about 45 minutes. And in transparency's sake, I was outside in the parking lot crying, actually, while I'm talking to this guy on the phone. And we're talking about our pasts and how do you move on? Like, how do you let go? Right. And really, like, not drag your past into your present. Because I actually believe that. I actually believe, Ryan, I think, and I believe this for all of us, I actually think that you have the power and the ability to invent yourself. You don't like who
100%.
you were yesterday, you can create that today. And I so hardly believe in it. The problem is my identity of self and your identity of self is built on what? Typically our past, our experience, who we were yesterday. And we kind of drag our past with us. as a way of trying to overcome something, or I'm better than, or to prove something, or we use it to identify who we are. And what makes it really hard, and this isn't advice, it's just, I guess I'm just really expressing what makes giving yourself grace difficult is people know you from your past.
Yeah.
And they're going to, and whether you create yourself new today, and whether you're on the path and like, it's out there and I am awesome today, unfortunately, those that love you, those that have been affected by you, they still know you as you of yesterday, and you of last month, and you of the months before. And it makes it so hard to like believe in your change and your creation, because people, whether they realize they're doing it or not, they will drag your past into your present way of being, because that's the evidence of who you are. And
I mean,
that shit just takes time.
If you think that's bad, imagine hundreds of thousands of men knowing your mistakes, which is what will happen.
Yeah.
Like, this is not, my 10 closest friends and acquaintances will know about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
but the more painful one is probably the ones that are closest to you.
Of course. And the best way, I think, to overcome that, whether it's what we're talking about now, alcoholism or anything else, is just owning your past. And when somebody says, hey, what are you talking about? You're an alcoholic. It's like, I was.
You're right.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's what I'm doing to fix it. I remember one time, vividly remember, somebody had made a comment on one of my posts, and I can't remember what the post was, but they said, Ryan, you're not as good as you think you are. You're not as good as the values or whatever you stand up for. And I'll tell you, it was so satisfying. I responded back. I said, you're 100% right. I fall short of my ideals every single day. It was so freeing. It's like, yeah, you're right. I'm not as good as I think I am. Yes, I fall short of my ideals every single day. And so when somebody's going to call me a hypocrite or an asshole or this or that, and they will, my answer is going to be, yeah.
Sucks.
I was that for sure. I'll tell you one other perspective, and I think this is important. I want to share this. I've really, because of this experience, it's kind of woken me up to getting more in touch with the spiritual side and God, and developing that relationship. And I'm just going to share it because maybe it will help somebody think about this. I've asked myself so many times, number one, why did I go through this? And that's kind of like putting it on external factors. And number two, why did I make these choices, which I think are internal, and those are both good. I feel like that I tempted God a little bit with this movement. And what I mean by that is, I said, not in a prayer to him necessarily, but through my actions, that I want to serve men. Like, I really want to be valuable in helping men improve their lives. I'm going to get emotional maybe. And I feel like now, looking at it, God said, oh yeah, you sure about that? I'm like, yep, I'm sure about it.
That's you doing it?
Yeah. Yep. No. He said, you sure you want to do this? You sure you really want to serve men? And I said, yeah, I do. Like, that's really what I want to do. He said, all right, here you go. Alcoholism. And then you making bad choices. And if you can overcome this, when you get through this challenge, then you'll be in a better position to serve men. Because I've experienced it. I know it. Like, I know what it feels like. And so anybody who comes to me and is like, man, I'm an alcoholic, I'm like, I know what you're going through, brother. Like, I know, I'm intimately familiar with what you're dealing with. Or, hey, I'm going to my meetings and I'm struggling and I've got temptation and I know, brother. I know what it's like. I feel that. And it's going to make me better. It's going to make me a better tool to help other men. It will. Although it's hard to see at times. It definitely will.
I've said this probably one too many times, but like, guys, oh, how do I deal with my divorce? How do I deal with my past? How do I deal with these things? And the way you deal with not living a life of regret is to show up in such a powerful way that you become grateful for the thing that you experienced. Like, without a doubt, and it sounds super counterintuitive, but I am grateful for when I got divorced. Because if that experience like propelled me in a way to show up in that I don't know if I would have ever showed up the way into who I am today if it wasn't for that experience. I'd probably still be wandering around being a victim and woe is me and blaming my wife and who knows what. And so I can't almost like, I honestly don't think I'd be who I am without that experience. So I can't help but kind of be grateful for it, you know? And I see that, you know, obviously I see that for you. I mean, by rising up in spite of this circumstance, I think that this is going to propel you in a way that you're just like, man, like I can't help but almost be grateful for that experience because it gave me the lessons. It propelled me in a way to show up in a powerful way that I would have never shown up otherwise.
I wrote something today. I came across a quote that was really powerful, and then I wrote a post about it in the Iron Council, which, guys, if we've talked about it, if you don't know what the Iron Council is, it's a brotherhood of men. There's about 1,500 of us, and we're all working together to hold each other accountable. So we have different channels available, different topics we discuss, like a sobriety channel. There's a fatherhood channel, firearms, breaking porn, health and fitness, you name it. There's channels about it. And it's closed. It's not on your typical social media platforms like Facebook and all this. It's like a closed platform specifically for our guys. We call it the Foundry. And they're on Battle T. Anyways, it's really cool. Just orderaman.com/Iron Council. But I wanted to share this with you. It's important. So I wrote this quote, and this is by C.S. Lewis, quote, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." And somebody had sent me a message, and I'll have to post this up, about what it looks like. And it's this tree, and it's going from left to right, and it shows your current path with all the branches. And then it shows the new path. And there's so many different options you can choose based on your actions. I'll have to post it up. But this is what I wrote. This quote struck me today because I know many of us are struggling with the choices that we've made in the past that have led us to where we are today. The way I see it, we now have three choices. One, continue the same course of action we always have and hope we arrive at a different result. Two, throw in the towel, wallow in our own self-pity, and destroy our lives. Three, pick ourselves up, dust the dirt off, and begin a new course of action where we learn from our mistakes and make better choices moving forward. I don't think it's much of a choice, really. Not that it makes our new path much easier, but for me, the mindset of option 3 has made my past mistakes and my current reality more manageable. And when I catch myself slipping into option 1 or 2, which is frequently, reminding myself that the only constructive choice is option 3 gives me just a little fuel to do the right thing. Let's make it an option 3 kind of week, gentlemen. This is what we have to do, guys. Like, the past is the past, and it sucks and it's painful and it hurts. You got 3 options. Which one are you going to choose?
I like it. Should we wrap up there?
I think so. It's a good place to wrap up. If you guys have additional questions or thoughts, or even about, like, specifically about this, happy to talk about it. Not happy to talk about it, but willing to talk about it.
And you could do so by following Mr. Mickler on the social media at Ryan Mickler, both Twitter and Instagram. Get your orders at store.orderofman.com for all your Order of Man swag. And then
I would say on that one, Kip, real quick on the store, get them done by the 10th of December to guarantee delivery for Christmas. So the 10th of December. I mean, anything after, we might still get it to you, we might not, but the 10th of December for Christmas. Got it. And then Iron Council membership. Did we decide we're going to open that early? We're not going to open it up earlier. I think we're going to make it available longer. So it's going to be available for 100% from December 15th through the 31st. Okay. So there's your call to action, gentlemen. You have a new 2023 coming up next year. If you want to join us in the Iron Council, where you're going to be placed on a battle team, you have a group of brothers that are holding you accountable, and you're striving towards showing up more powerfully in life. You want to join us there.
Your window of opportunity starts on the 15th of December to start next year in January. So I want to be really clear. What I don't want is us to get pinged on January, mid-January, and you're like, all right, I'm ready to get on the court, put me in, coach. And we're like, no. The game has already started. Okay?
Right.
The game starts.
We start ahead of time here.
Yeah, we start ahead of time, right? We're more or less doing tryouts. Okay. So you need to sign up to do tryouts and get prepped, get your uniform, figure out what position you're playing, so we can get the game started in January. So that opens up on the 15th. That's orderofman.com/Iron Council.
That's it.
Okay.
All right, guys. Great questions today. Sorry, some of that capitalized, but I felt like, man, we really needed to talk about it. So we'll continue talking about these things. Not easy and comfortable subjects to discuss, but this is why we're doing it, right? If it was all easy, fun conversations, I don't know that it would have as much the impact that it does. So appreciate all you guys. Keep the questions coming, and we'll keep working on ourselves as you work on yourself. All right, guys, we'll be back on Friday. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.